My name is Cecili Simmons. I'm with Keller Williams Atlanta North, and I want to welcome you to my channel. If you are considering moving to Metro Atlanta or any of the surrounding areas in the suburbs, definitely reach out to me. I'd love to help you get started on reaching your real estate goals, whether you're buying, selling, or investing. Now, if you are undecided or you're interested in getting a little bit more info, you don't want to miss this video. The topic of this discussion, the pros and cons of living in Atlanta, Georgia. All right, so I have 5 pros and about 5 cons, so let's just jump right into it, shall we? Number 1 on my pros for living in Atlanta is definitely the 4 seasons, the weather. Atlanta, you really get the feel of being in the South where we have the warmer temperatures, but then you also, during the winter time, during the cooler seasons, when fall comes in, you definitely experience the fullness of what all of those seasons have to offer. So much so, sometimes I find myself undecided on which season is my favorite, because you definitely get a good taste of experiencing all of them here in the ATL. The leaves change for the most part during the fall. There's a lot of woods here. Then in the winter, we definitely get the cold temperatures. Now, I know that's relative depending on where you're from, but we definitely get colder temperatures here, which is really nice, with a lot of the wooded areas and really any part of the city that you're in. And we've even experienced ice and occasional snow over the years since I've been an Atlantean over the last 2 decades. So, and summer, of course, is a breeze. They don't call it Hotlanta, which is kind of an old term for no reason, but we didn't get the term Hotlanta for, all of the hotties and baddies that are here. That's just one of the reasons, right? But it's also Hotlanta because it gets hot here. Number 2 on my pros, it is a city unlike any other in the South in terms of being a popular place to live, being one of the places to be on the map in terms of popular culture, which has been made kind of that with the hip hop industry over the last few decades. I think Atlanta has really come up because of the different record companies, the different hip hop artists, music industry professionals that have flocked here to, get a little taste, take a shot at the rap game. But the music industry as well as Hollywood has definitely contributed to a significant uptick in relocation and popularity here in Atlanta over the last few years. Many of the industry professionals and personnel have relocated here in more recent years because of the talks of lower taxes. So many aspiring models, actors, singers, dancers flock here because it's the place to be, because who's who is here in entertainment. From my own personal experience, being here before Hollywood actually relocated here, in the years before, going to college here, I've seen it to where people that were in entertainment were definitely first on the list was LA or New York, right? But now you don't really have to relocate so much. Those places are here. It's still a very much a booming spot for expansion for companies, creating more jobs. There's a lot of different industries that are setting up shop and hiring here. Across many different industries, you'll find that there are a lot of families relocating to Atlanta from many different areas around the United States and the world globally. A lot of jobs are being transferred here to Atlanta by many major companies. Now, my 3rd pro of living in Atlanta has to be the diversity. Being the daughter of a soldier in the U.S. Army brats unite, I have had the luxury of moving around a great deal as a child. At first, it seemed like something that was negative, but it actually turned out to be a very positive teaching moment for me, actually a wonderful lesson for me in learning about and appreciating many cultures, having the luxury of having made a lot of friendships since I was a young girl with so many friends across many cultures. I can definitely attest to the fact that Atlanta does have a significant representation of people, families across many different cultures that you can experience. You can run into and encounter people from all over the world that have relocated to Atlanta. And I think it's only going to continue to get more and more diverse. It's a wonderful feeling. I think that also contributes to Atlanta feeling like one of the places to be on the map. I feel like anybody could feel welcome here. Number 4 on my list of pros of living in Atlanta has to be nature. The nature element in Atlanta is real, right? Now, I'm saying Atlanta, I'm referring to Metro Atlanta, right? That includes the surrounding areas, because we all know Atlanta, just like any other major city, has, the urban part, the city centers, right? Where the highways, the byways are, the high-rise buildings, downtown area, you still get to see hints that Atlanta is a great place to connect with nature. The more you venture out into the suburbs, the surrounding areas, you start to see more and more of different types of terrain. Like, you'll see that we have mountains here. We have a lot of trees, as I've mentioned, lots of wooded areas. We have forests. One of the main, I think, gems about living in Atlanta, there's the Chattahoochee River, which is not only located in Atlanta, it just happens to be one of the main bodies of water that are naturally occurring bodies of water that we have here in the Metro Atlanta area. But people tube on the Chattahoochee connects to so many different other areas of Atlanta and outside of Georgia. But then there are a lot of natural parks, walking and hiking trails, which are huge here in Atlanta, that connect along areas of the Chattahoochee River, which I happen to love. I've always been an avid hiker, or just going on those trail walks, trail runs. That's definitely something that you will want to take advantage of when you're in Atlanta. There's just so many natural trails. There's even falls if you get out into the more rural parts outside of Atlanta, getting into more of the country, neighboring cities and towns. We've got Tallulah Falls, inside of Atlanta, even right around Buckhead area. A place that's become really popular is the Bamboo Forest, which I have had the pleasure of visiting recently, and I have a video coming on that. So you definitely want to get out and just immerse yourself in the rich elements of nature that Atlanta has to offer. I think it gives you an overall feel for how versatile you can be in this city. You can actually make your lifestyle here in Atlanta whatever you choose at any given time, which takes me to the pro number 5 of living in Atlanta, and that is the hybrid, the ability to kind of make a hybridization, if that's even the right word or descriptor, for your experience here, right? So what I mean by that is you really can immerse yourself and really create a rural type of a feel, a homey, cozy, or farmy, outdoorsy, whatever you want in the way of not being in a big city. You can find that if that's your vibe here in Atlanta, but then you can also very much find your urban, your in-town, hip, city living, high-rise, right? You can find that vibe as well, and then there's everything in between. If you want a lot of yard, we've got that. If you don't want to do any yard cutting, you don't want to have to deal with a yard, you have that as well. If you would like to live in or around mountains, we've got, that as well, to a degree. It's not like you're going to be, I wouldn't say it's the Appalachians, I wouldn't say it's, the biggest mountain. There's bigger mountains, but we do have that feel as well. We've got Kennesaw Mountain, we've got Arabia Mountain, we've got Stone Mountain. There's so many different patterns and swatches in this town. that you have to choose from depending on your taste, your preferences, you know, your location. There's a different feel for different neighborhoods. So if you're definitely set on moving to Atlanta, it's not a matter of does it exist? We definitely have what you need. Atlanta has a lot of diversity. So now it is time for my cons. So let's jump in. Number one of the biggest cons that I have for living in Atlanta, number one, traffic. Atlanta has the pretty bad traffic situation going on. Now, I would say since the C word, which I'm not going to say, since, you know, the shutdowns and the quarantines and that time period when things went a little haywire, things have actually kind of lightened up a little bit just in general, because I think more people are not working outside of the home. People have figured out a way to not have to jump onto the highways so much to get to their daily commutes and to get to their jobs, right? The daily commutes have been cut down by many, but there still is a very real problem and has been for quite a while with traffic. I lived in LA years ago, and I think when I was living in LA, Atlanta, the traffic here was said to have surpassed that of LA, which was definitely known for having the worst traffic up until 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in LA. And Atlanta has had the reputation of having far worse traffic. So that should give you an idea. I will say, as an Atlantean, you just got to know where you're going and factor in the time of day, and always look for back roads. That still works. I don't know when you'll watch this video, but by the time you see this video, maybe that won't be as accurate, but it still works for the most part. As more and more people continue to relocate here, I have a feeling that may change, because more people will discover the secret passageway back roads to get to different places. But, you know, we'll just find others as the city expands and infrastructure is created to create more byways and more roads. We'll still find a way, right? So number one, traffic. If you can, work from home. If you cannot, it's not that bad. You just got to get in where you fit in. You'll get used to it, and definitely factor in your timing so that you are not late to the job. We all do it. You'll be fine. And you know, you'll reach out to me. I'll be your realtor, and I'll help you. I'll help you plan your commute, and I'll help you seek out some back roads if they exist. I ain't making no promises. Number two on my cons of living in Atlanta actually is also one of my pros, and that is that Atlanta is a hot spot. Atlanta is popular. It's kind of a place to be. That has its good and its bad. So I mentioned the good. I would say the bad with Atlanta being a hot spot is that everybody and their mama wants to live here now. And, you know, I get it. We're pretty cool. This is a cool town. I don't want to be like I hear other people say, don't anybody else come here, we full. I don't feel like that. You know, I have more of a welcoming mentality, having grown up as an Army brat. I know how it is to relocate somewhere and everybody wants to act like there's some secret cliquish insider club going on, and it's a free country. We can come and go as we choose, right? So baby, come on, you're welcome here, right? Just keep in mind that everyone else is going to be wanting to move here too, and because of Atlanta's reputation as being the spot for, you know, probably hip hop, rap, you know, all of the people, all of the cool kids, and everybody wants to be a part of that winning team that I think has been painted by rap culture and Hollywood, that is Atlanta. So everybody automatically associates themselves with ATL. So you kind of have to take that when you're in conversations. I mean, you could literally, I've been in conversations all over the world and mentioned that I'm from Atlanta, and people in other countries act like they're from Atlanta too, because everyone feels like they know and are a part of it because it has become that popular through television, film, and music, depending on who you speak with, right? I'm not bragging or nothing, but so, take that with a grain of salt and just look at it as a positive. Everybody wants to be an expert and a member of the club that you're already in, right? Number 3 for my cons of living in Atlanta. Back to the weather. The weather is great, but depending on the weather, wintertime, sometimes Atlanta over the years has been shown to not have their ish stuff together. Not so much. For example, we have had things like Snowmageddon, where we had a serious front of cold, ice, rain, sleet, and snow, and that's like a horrible combination here in Atlanta, because when that happens, the temperatures drop, and a phenomenon happens where you get on our streets this substance created called black ice. And usually what should happen when they know that that's going to take place, the city should be shut down with notice, giving people enough notice to get time to get to the store, get any supplies they need, and everybody gets the warning and the recommendation to stay in their houses, batten down the hatches, just relax at home. And that usually is what happens, right? Well, during this time, Snowmageddon, I forget the year, really quickly, in a nutshell, so I don't spend too much time on this point. Someone forgot to make that call, some of the higher ups and the officials, not naming any names. The call was never made, or wasn't made in time, rather. So by the time it was made, people were already well into the work day, and it was about time. Nobody was told in time enough to prepare and go home in time for that to happen. So people were left stranded, literally on the highways, having to leave their cars. Everyone tried to leave work and go home at the same time because they didn't get enough of a notice to stay home. Companies were not told to shut down for that time period so that people would have enough time. People still went into work, and everybody ended up being gridlocked and ended up stranded overnight on the highways, forcing many to, because of the cold temperatures, if they could, because some were disabled and stuck in their cars, and people were stuck without restrooms, and it was just a big cluster. And that's the nicest way, most kind way I can describe that. You can fill in the rest of the blank. But many people tried to go to find help at hotels, which had lobbies that were overpacked already with people that had beat them to it, and some people were just on the streets being asked to leave businesses and the malls. There was just no contingencies in place, and many people have found themselves in an unfortunate situation during that time. Many were heavily inconvenienced, and there were a lot of disabled people that, on a real serious note, were left to fend and try to survive that. It was not good. Many of us had loved ones out there that we couldn't even get to because we couldn't leave because the roads were so bad. Literally, cars were, crashing because of the ice. I could go on and on and on. So sometimes, and I mention that because Atlanta doesn't really have, to me, they're getting better, but sometimes things like that have shown that we have been lacking in the way of planning in terms of inclement weather, specifically with things like that ice and the snow. Sometimes they don't get to the roads in time. Sometimes they don't make the call in time necessary to make sure people are safe, out of harm's way, at their homes when it comes to weather, especially the cold and ice. And I will leave it there. Now, my fifth for cons, I gotta be honest, I didn't have a fifth con because I think Atlanta is an amazing city. So I'm gonna try to come up with that really quickly. I do have a con. My fifth con for living in Atlanta has to deal with public transportation. Many of the major cities have a very reliable, far spread, very accessible, convenient source of transportation, a public transportation source that is easily accessible across a wide range of the city, north, south, east, west, in town, as well as getting people to out of town, like a real easy way for people to commute from the outskirts or outer areas into the city center. Atlanta, however, has MARTA. And MARTA, it's similar to I use this very loosely. It's trying to be similar to the subway, but it's not that at all, because it does not even come close to the subway, because it does not have access. It doesn't go out into the suburbs far enough for it to make it a reliable source of transportation. Put Atlanta on the map as far as public transportation goes. MARTA is not a serious contender. It doesn't measure up to the rail stations in New York City. It doesn't compare to the subway or any of the railroads or rail stations in the north. And I do think MARTA needs a little bit of help. I've heard two things. I've heard some people say that some are happy that MARTA does not have access. MARTA is not set up to reach the farther, more suburban areas, because they would rather not have people from the cities being able to get out to the suburbs so easily. But I think that with proper planning and safety measures intact, it's time for MARTA to factor in planning and construction so that people can MARTA into and out of the suburban parts of greater Atlanta to get in town, get to the airport, to get all the way south of the city. We have to remember, in Atlanta, we run in that circle. We've got the 285 perimeter around Atlanta, and then we have different cities on the north, south, east, and west. MARTA right now is not giving what it needs to give in terms of making transportation easily accessible to all of the major suburban areas that also connect to Metro Atlanta. I think MARTA could do a little bit better in that way. Right now, you can drive to some of the neighboring cities and park and then get on MARTA, but I think MARTA could also add a few more stations. There's no MARTA station in Cobb County. There is one in Roswell, but MARTA could do a little bit better to get out here to Marietta, as well as some other areas, to make it easier for everybody to get in town without having to drive. And that would actually alleviate some of that pressure when we're talking about traffic. Now, since I've started this channel, so many of you have reached out to work with me and schedule those consultations to have me as your realtor, and I can't thank you enough. Definitely keep that contact coming. I am ready to help you or someone you know buy, sell, or invest in the Atlanta area. Let's get on the phone soon, or better yet, let's hop on a Zoom and get the process started, getting you closer to your real estate dreams. Until next time, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.